the most twisted and rare case in American history. Hello, everyone. Today, we're diving into a truly rare case in American history, the tragic murder of Jessica Chambers, which took place in Mississippi. Jessica Chambers was born in February 1995 and spent her childhood in Mississippi, a state in the southern U.S. along the eastern banks of the Mississippi River. The state covers about 120,000 square kilometers, with roughly half of it forested. In the northwestern part of Mississippi is a small community called Cortland, located in Panola County. This tiny town, with a population of only around 500, is close-knit. Everyone knows each other. Jessica's parents divorced when she was young, and her father later went to prison. Then, in 2012, Jessica lost her brother in a car accident when she was just 11. Despite her difficult childhood, she grew up with a positive outlook on life, making friends easily. In high school, she even joined the cheerleading squad. After graduation, Jessica found work at a clothing store in Batesville, just 8 kilometers north of Cortland. Each day, she commuted back and forth without incident, until one fateful winter night changed everything. The tragedy unfolds. On Saturday, December 6, 2014, at 8:07 p.m., Panola County's 911 center received an urgent call. The caller reported seeing a car ablaze by the side of the road. The car hadn't crashed, and there were no signs of impact nearby. Officers quickly responded. Within 2 minutes, firefighters and police arrived at the scene. But to their shock, there was more than just a burning car. Just a few feet away, a young woman, clad only in underwear, staggered toward them, clearly injured. Firefighters extinguished the flames, but the young woman was severely burned and barely conscious. Some nearby people rushed over to her, asking who had hurt her. With weak breaths, she whispered a name that was hard to make out. 5 or 6 people at the scene heard it, but opinions varied. Some thought it sounded like Eric, while others thought she said Derek. Unfortunately, due to the faint pronunciation and the similarity in the sounds of the names, they were unsure. When an ambulance finally arrived, the woman was rushed to a nearby hospital in Memphis, where her identity was confirmed as Jessica Chambers, aged 19. Tragically, with 98% of her body burned, Jessica succumbed to her injuries the following day. Before passing, Jessica held tightly to her mother's hand, while police began investigating the brutal crime. On that terrible day, responders reached the scene just 2 minutes after the 911 call at 8:07 p.m. Firefighters and police arrived by 8:09 p.m. After assessing the car, they concluded that it had likely been burning for about 30 minutes before they arrived. Jessica's injuries seemed to coincide with this timeline. Investigators deduced that both Jessica and her car had been set ablaze around 7:40 p.m. Autopsy results later confirmed that traces of a highly flammable liquid were present on Jessica's body, even in her nose and throat. She had likely inhaled a significant amount of smoke, leading to her death. 2 days later, investigators found Jessica's car keys along the roadside, approximately 500 meters from where the incident took place. The keys were completely intact. DNA analysis revealed the presence of DNA from 4 different men on the keys, reinforcing the theory that Jessica's death was not accidental, but a deliberate homicide. The investigation. Before Jessica was taken to the hospital, witnesses at the scene reported hearing her whisper the name Eric or Derek. This led police to investigate all men named Eric or Derek in Cortland and nearby areas, but none proved suspicious. Phone records showed that Jessica hadn't communicated with anyone by those names in the month leading up to her death. Another lead soon emerged: Jessica's boyfriend, Sanford. Upon hearing of her death, Sanford was heartbroken and blamed himself for not protecting her. However, he was not considered a suspect since he was in jail at the time of the incident. Jessica's mother reported that on the morning of the incident, Jessica had been with friends before returning home to nap. Later that afternoon, she received a call and told her grandmother she would be heading out for some food and planned to wash her car, intending to be back by evening. She left around 5 p.m., and that was the last time her family saw her. In Cortland, there is a well-known gas station called M and First Stop, which doubles as a convenience store and fast food outlet. Jessica stopped by this station at around 5:30 p.m., wearing a black sweater and shorts. That day, she bought $14 worth of gas, a noticeable amount, as she rarely bought more than $3 to $4 worth. This suggested she might have planned to drive further than usual. Security footage from the station showed Jessica waving at someone off-camera and heading in their direction. Unfortunately, this part of the station wasn't covered by surveillance, so the person she interacted with remains unknown. 2 minutes later, Jessica got back in her car, headed south on Route 51, and eventually returned to Cortland around 6:30 p.m. At 6:45 p.m., Jessica called her mother, saying she'd be home soon. Her mother recalled that the call was quiet, as if Jessica was indoors. At approximately 7:30 p.m., Jessica drove toward the site where the tragedy would unfold. Despite collecting various pieces of evidence, police needed additional details to fully reconstruct the night's events. A crucial lead. A month passed without any progress, prompting authorities to offer a $54,000 reward for tips. Finally, one of Jessica's friends mentioned a man named Quentin Tellis, 25. According to the friend, Jessica had been acquainted with Quentin for about 2 weeks before the incident. Police investigations uncovered that Quentin had a history of theft and drug-related offenses, with his most recent release from jail occurring just 2 months before Jessica's murder. Jessica's friend found Quentin's behavior suspicious and reported him to the police, and sure enough, more vital clues began to emerge. Phone data from Quentin and surrounding surveillance cameras revealed that he was with Jessica on the day of the incident. Investigators retraced their steps that day, using a map to show that Jessica visited a gas station, Quentin's house, across from the gas station, her own house farther north, and the spot where her car eventually caught fire. According to the investigation, Quentin had called Jessica that day, asking her to meet up. At 4:35 p.m., Jessica messaged him, saying she'd join him for lunch if he was paying. At 4:59, they had a brief 33-second call, and by 5:08 p.m., Quentin was spotted at the gas station but didn't purchase anything. He then headed south as dusk began to settle. By 5:20, Jessica arrived at the same gas station, bought a few items, and left around 5:29, driving southward. At 5:34, Quentin called Jessica again, and from 6:04 to 6:11, her phone location showed she was on her way from Cortland to Batesville. At 6:17, Quentin made a call to his sister, and their phones both registered in Batesville. Jessica also attempted to call her friend Kira between 6:22 and 6:25, but the call went unanswered. By 6:30, both Jessica and Quentin were back in Cortland. Quentin claimed he dropped Jessica off at home, admitting they had been intimate in his car while parked in a wooded area near his house. At 6:48, Jessica called her mother for 78 seconds. Then, at 7:10 p.m., a camera captured a car leaving Quentin's home. Jessica's car left Quentin's house at 7:30, with her phone signal later registering near the crime scene. Between 6:55 and 7:41, 5 people tried to reach Quentin, but he didn't answer. At 7:42, he called Jessica, leaving a voicemail saying his friend was visiting, so he would call her the next morning, wishing her a good night. At 7:46, Quentin called another woman named Chiji Tao, saying he would be borrowing his sister's Chevrolet SUV. At 7:50, surveillance footage from the gas station captured an SUV heading towards Quentin's house, pausing for about 1 minute and 40 seconds before driving away at 7:52. At 8 p.m., his sister's SUV was recorded by a camera driving towards Batesville. At 8:07, a passerby noticed Jessica's car engulfed in flames and called 911. Between 8 p.m. and 8:23, Quentin called his girlfriend, Chijitao, 5 times, and at 8:26, he appeared on camera at a store in Batesville, now wearing a clean, new-looking white outfit. When police questioned him, Quentin initially claimed he hadn't seen Jessica that day. However, GPS data couldn't lie, and he changed his statement, now saying he had only been with Jessica in the morning. Surveillance from a Batesville store showed Quentin there at 8:26 p.m., 40 minutes after the estimated 7:40 p.m. ignition of Jessica's car. Since the drive from Cortland to Batesville takes only 8 minutes, it was plausible that after the fire, Quentin stopped by his sister's house, drove her SUV home, changed clothes, and deliberately appeared on camera in Batesville, establishing an alibi. This timeline suggested Quentin as the likely culprit. Previous surveillance footage was now invalid, and his shifting story raised more suspicion. When his claim that he'd only been with Jessica in the morning was disproven, he revised his story a third time, stating he and Jessica had visited a Mexican restaurant called Taco in Batesville before returning to his house to listen to music. He insisted she left around 7 p.m., but phone data and the gas station camera showed she actually left at 7:30 p.m. Guilty or innocent? Text messages between Quentin and Jessica showed that about a week before the incident, he had repeatedly expressed interest in a physical relationship with her, asking her 4 times on the day of the murder, to which she firmly declined. Suspiciously, about an hour before the incident, he deleted all messages and Jessica's contact from his phone. Security footage revealed that Quentin changed clothes 3 times that day, and when asked about this, he simply stated he liked to stay clean. Later, officers returned to the gas station to speak with an employee named Ollie, with Quentin nearby eavesdropping, showing an unusual interest in the police's findings. DNA from Quentin was found on Jessica's car keys. In his home, officers found a 5-liter gasoline can, which he admitted was his, though he argued that gas cans were common in most households, so this proved nothing. Despite many red flags, there was no definitive evidence to convict him. Additionally, Eric or Derek were not nicknames or aliases associated with Quentin, nor were they found in Jessica's contacts. Shortly after the incident, Quentin married and moved to Monroe, Louisiana. In July 2015, he became embroiled in another case. A Monroe University professor was murdered, and police quickly identified Quentin as the prime suspect after he used the victim's stolen bank card. Their phone data confirmed Quentin had known the professor for weeks, and neighbors recalled seeing him in her neighborhood. He denied any involvement in her death, admitting only to using her bank card. Eventually, he was sentenced to 10 years for unauthorized card use. A grueling case. Nearly 3 years after the incident, in October 2017, the case finally went to trial. The jury consisted of 7 men and 5 women. The prosecutor argued that Quentin, who was near the victim's home, intended to be intimate with Jessica, but she refused, which angered him. The prosecution suggested that Quentin may have strangled her or otherwise caused her to suffocate, and, assuming she was dead, drove somewhere along the road before going to his sister's house to borrow her car and gasoline. He then returned to Jessica's car to set it on fire, attempting to destroy evidence. Although this theory aligned with the movements and timelines of both Jessica and Quentin, the extensive damage to the car meant that no concrete evidence could be confirmed. Thus, there wasn't enough hard evidence to support the prosecutor's theory. After an intense discussion, the jury reached a verdict. All 12 members agreed that Quentin was not guilty. However, one of the members stood up and expressed disagreement with this decision, asserting that Quentin was indeed guilty. After hearing this, the judge instructed the jury to reach a unanimous conclusion. They deliberated but could not reach a consensus, resulting in a deadlock. The judge then decided the case would be retried at a later date. Nearly a year after the initial trial, in September 2018, the case was retried with a new jury of 12 fresh members. This time, a crucial witness named Sherry Flowers, a resident of Cortland, came forward. She testified that on the night of the incident, she had been driving down the road and saw a man standing there, signaling for a ride. At first, Sherry thought it was her cousin, but upon closer inspection, she realized it was a stranger. The man asked where she was heading and requested a ride to his Aunt Julia's house, as he had heard it was on fire. Coincidentally, Sherry knew this person because she used to work as a hairdresser in town, so she gladly agreed to give him a lift. Sherry dropped him off near Julia's house on Route 51. She described the man as African American, about 20 years old, and of average build, though she couldn't recall his hairstyle or clothing due to the passage of time, only that he had a soft voice and remained silent for the ride. After he got out of the car, she didn't notice which direction he went. Sherry also mentioned she wasn't sure what time she picked him up. It was already dusk, possibly between 6 and 7 p.m. On her way, she saw no fire trucks, police, or ambulances. After dropping him off, she drove to another town, only returning home around 10 or 11 p.m. As for why she hadn't come forward sooner, Sherry explained she hadn't thought the man would be linked to Jessica's case. Later, after being urged by friends, she decided to testify. In court, Sherry could not confirm whether Quentin was the man she picked up, as she truly couldn't remember. Regarding Jessica's mention of the names Eric and Derek before her death, the defense argued these names were unrelated to Quentin, suggesting this could prove he had no involvement in the crime. The prosecutor's witness, a renowned burn expert named William Sicken, testified that the burns on the victim's throat might have caused her to utter something that sounded like Eric or Derek, but could actually have been another name. This evidence wasn't enough to prove Quentin's guilt, but didn't clear him either. Quentin then told police that a man named Derek Holmes had been following Jessica and had a prior criminal record for sexual offenses. Quentin insisted he had seen Derek and Jessica together. However, Derek's statement contradicted this, as he claimed that at the time of the incident, he was at his mother's house where family and neighbors could vouch for his presence. Phone records confirmed he wasn't with Jessica on that day, so Derek was ruled out as a suspect. During this second trial, both sides continued to argue vehemently, but couldn't reach an agreement. No side could convince the other, resulting in what became the longest trial on record. In the end, the 12 jury members were still unable to reach a unanimous decision, and once again, Jessica's case was declared a mistrial, adding another unresolved case to the records due to its complexity. Some believed Quentin was guilty, while others maintained the opposite, creating an unusual situation where a case required 2 trials. As for his crime of unauthorized use of a bank card, Quentin is currently serving his sentence in Monroe City. The third trial for Jessica's case remains pending, leaving the case unresolved. Do you think Quentin was responsible for Jessica's death? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to leave a like and hit the notification bell to stay updated on our upcoming videos. Your support helps the channel grow. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.